Jillian.
I looked down and I was like, because I was pulling up the list, and then I was like, oh wait, I had a nice week and are ready back for our, what is this, our fourth class? Yeah. So, for tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to do family signs, people signs, and occupations. So it's all about a bunch of people. So the thing we're going to start with first is our family signs. And what's the nice thing about the family signs is that it kind of has a cap. There's not too many because the more complicated you get, the more you have to like fingerspell or explain with other things. So we kind of have a nice little limit this time. So for our first sign, we're going to do the sign for family. So the sign for family is you're going to have two F's. You're going to start them together and you're going to go to your pinkies. So thumbs and touching to your pinkies. Family, family. Now, the important thing to know about this motion is that generalized motion is talking about a group of something, of someone's or people. And so you'll notice, like, for example, class. I know y'all may not be teachers or things like that, but obviously that's what I think of. Class is that C motion, class. And then group is kind of that open hand motion. So that's why family is right here with it too, is because obviously a family is a group of people that are all related. So family. I always like to add that. I think that's always just interesting. Then we're going to have our next one. Oh, that's actually smart. Okay, sorry. I was looking at the list and how you did man and woman first. We will sometimes forget man and woman because we always go straight to mom and dad. We're pretty bad about that. So I'm like, good thing we're starting off here.
Like somehow we managed to skip the simplest,
We
most
literally
basic.
It's literally like zero again. It's literally like zero again. There's just a few that's just like, I don't even think. And I'm like, oh, wait, yeah, we should have that. So for man, what you're going to do is you're going to have a 5, put your thumb on your forehead, and then you're going to bring it to your chest. Man. Man. And some people do, I have seen this a few times where they start with like almost like an A and open to the hand. Man. I do see this one more often, but I have seen this one. So that's just a little bit of exposure. For woman, you do the same thing, but now you're going to be on your chin. Woman, woman, woman. And the same thing, I've seen the woman, man, woman, that kind of thing. So woman. Now we're going to have dad. Dad is just going to be that same motion we did here, but it stays. Dad. Then we have mom. Mom is very similar. It's the woman, but just right here, mom. So dad, mom, man, and then woman. Okay. Now let's do, then we'll go back through those again. The next one we have is parents. And the reason I add this one is because you guys basically already did it. Parents is mom, dad, or dad, mom, whichever way you go. It's just parents. Parents. It's nice and simple. Okay, so we had, let's go back. So we had family. So family, family, family. Then we had man. There we go. Man, man, woman, 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 dad, dad, and mom, mom. Then we had our parents, mom, dad, dad, mom, whichever way. I have a bad tendency to do that with the brother, sister, mom, dad, is I'll go dad, mom, I'll sign dad, mom, but I will literally voice mom, dad. So just know they are still in the same place. I may flip it because the English and the ASL are arguing with each other and they both are winning. They're both winning and they're both losing at the same time. It's chaos. That's what happens when you have two different languages going in your head at the same time. So, okay, our next one we're going to have is boy. So the sign for boy, it's going to be like you're thinking, think like a baseball cap, okay? And it's boy, boy. It's like you're pinching it, boy, boy. Then we have girl, and it's girl. It's on your cheek, girl. Girl, girl. I have seen sometimes a little like a motion, like I think like 2 or 3 times, but you don't want to keep doing it constantly because that can be every day. So every day is when you keep repeatedly doing it. And typically girl can be 1. I have seen sometimes people saying girl with the like 1 or 2 times. It's not often like this though. Okay. All right. So then we have baby. So baby, very simple. It's just like holding a baby. Baby. Now, the reason we did boy and girl and baby beforehand is because for son and daughter, you combine them. So for son, you're going to go boy, baby. And you don't really have to do the full rocking motion of boy, baby. Typically, you could just go boy, baby, boy, baby. So son, then daughter is going to be girl, baby, girl, baby. Okay. Let's see. The next one we have is the sign for children. So the sign for children is children. It's like you're patting their heads. That's all I think about is just you pat, 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 all the children's head. Don't know why, but that's it. And you do typically, I know I'm kind of up higher, but they are more lower, right around kind of like chest level when you pat children. Then we'll do this one more and then we'll go back. The next one is kids. And so for kids, you're kind of doing this rock and roll motion like shape. That's always like how I like to describe it. And you're going to put it under your nose. Kids. Kids. So this is talking about kids. Obviously, you can interchange with talk about children or kids. Either one works, obviously. So let's go back. We had boy, boy. You were ready. You're like, son, ready. I saw her eyes go, oh, wait a minute. We're just on boy. We had girl, girl. Then son, son. And then daughter, daughter. The nice thing is it's a very smooth motion. Like it's automatically like straight after go into that girl kind of thing. So it's not like you're going girl, daughter. It's daughter. Then we had children, children, children. And then kids, kids, kids. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is now sister. Okay. So sister is going to start with 2 L's. You're going to have your non-dominant L kind of down. And, you know, I do this every time. I always keep my thumb up. And then when I sign it, I change it again. Put your thumb down. I do that every single time. I'm always like L's. And then I suddenly change it. And everyone's like, what? Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a play gun down here.
Yeah, it's not.
No. Okay.
But your dominant one does kind of stay in that shape.
Okay.
Yes. Your dominant hand, you're going to put on your chin like this. Then you're going to bring it on top. Sister. Sister. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see it. Sister. 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 So that is sister. Then we have brother. Same thing, but on your forehead. Brother. 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 You will start to notice, if you haven't already, that anything related to male is going to be up here on around your head. Female is going to be here around your chin. That's going to be kind of consistent as we go on, which I think is helpful. Once you kind of know, like, okay, male's up here, females is down here, it kind of keeps it where you can kind of separate it better. Okay. So then we had sister, brother. I told you I was going to do it. The English wants to say sister, brother first, but ASL wants to go sister first. Can't help it. So sister, brother. Siblings is that same thing. You just say them back and forth. Okay. Then we have aunt, like your aunt. And so you're going to go A, and you're going to bring it near the corner of your chin, and you're going to just kind of make a little shaking motion. Aunt. 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 Then we have uncle. Uncle's going to be similar with a U, and now next to your forehead. Uncle. Uncle. Then we have cousins. Now with cousins, there's about 3 different ways. When I say 3 different ways, they're all similar, okay? So the first one I'm gonna show you is just the non-specific gendered cousins, okay? And it's gonna be a C, and you're gonna have it basically, I always like to say kind of that, like vision your ear between it. And so it's cousins. This is talking about like there's no specific gender you're talking about, it's just a cousin. But if you wanted to talk about a boy cousin, you would bring it up high on your head right here. Or if you're talking about a girl cousin, you bring it down low by your chin. Cousin. Okay. Let's do our last two. Oh, well, there's three. Last three of the families, because I know we're going at a slow pace. So I would like, let's just finish this out. So we have grandma or grandmother. And so what you're going to do is you're going to start with that mom shape. So the thumb here, and you're going to bounce it out. Grandma, 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 grandma. Then for grandpa, same thing, but on the forehead. So start with dad and go grandpa, 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 grandpa. Our last one we're gonna do, and this one's always just kind of a fun one. I'm a little bit biased. That's why I think it's on this list. Is the sign for twins. Okay. So the sign for twins is you're gonna have a 2. You're gonna start on the opposite corner of your mouth. So if you're right-handed, it's on your left side, left is on your right, and you're gonna go twins. You're gonna come down on each cheek. Twins, twins, twins. The reason I'm biased is because I have twin siblings. So every time I talk about my family, I always have to emphasize that I have twin siblings. So that's why I think this one's always come up is twins, twins. Okay, let's go back. So we had sister, sister, sister. So your non-dominant is kind of in this pointer finger, dominance in the L, and you bring it to your chin and down on top. Sister, sister, brother, forehead down, brother. Then we had, I think I added here siblings, which is just sister, brother, or brother, sister, whichever way. Then we had aunt with the A, aunt. And then uncle, uncle. And then cousin, our gender neutral cousin over here, cousin. Then boy cousin up high, girl cousin down low. Then we had grandma, so grandma. And then grandpa, grandpa, grandpa. And then our final one, which was twins, 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 twins. Okay, how are you guys feeling on our family signs as of right now? Feeling good? Okay, awesome. Okay, before we move on to occupations and people, what we're going to do is I'm going to explain how you would list your family to someone. So if you were talking about your family and you wanted to describe them, okay? Because that is a little bit different and it's kind of important how you follow with it. So when you are listing something in ASL, it's important that the way you do it, your hand is almost going to kind of turn like this. So I think you've probably have caught like when I'm signing things and I'm talking about we're going to do this first, then this, then that. I'll like pull up that 3 and I go tick, tick, tick. Like it's like my checklist kind of deal. And so you do the similar sort of thing with when you're talking about your family. For me, I'm fortunate I can do just the plain old 5. Okay. So if I were going to say my family, I would say like who, I would do this. Like I would point that there's 5 people in my family. I start with my dad, then I would go my mom, me, my sister, and then my brother. I'm being lazy right now. Really, you would do sister, brother, but I'm just doing it right this way. The reason I do it in this order is that's for me is age order a little bit, and that's just kind of how I have it set. You can have it set however you want. If you want to be like, this is me, and then it's my brother, then my sister, my kid, whichever, you have it however order you want. But what is important is during that conversation, if you do kind of place people where they are, it is important that if you go back to them, they are in the same place. So I know that kind of sounds like you're like probably like what? For example, if I'm talking with you guys and I'm saying, "Oh yeah, my family," and I said like dad, mom, me, sister, brother, and then I start talking about, well, my sister, and then I go here. That's not who I put there. I put my brother there. It can get kind of confusing, especially I'm gonna use Miss Katie's family, for example. I think that's a perfect example. She's got 3 daughters. And so if you were talking about each daughter and you were trying to talk about Evie, the oldest, and she's right here, but then you pointed to Scout here as second, those are 2 different girls, that kind of thing. For me, with my siblings, it wouldn't be as problematic because I only have a brother and a sister, so I have one. But for families that have a lot of the same siblings, it can get kind of confusing. And so you can use this to help when you're describing or talking about your family. Okay. If you have a family bigger than like 6 or more, or I'd say 5 or more, so the immediate, she does. 13? Oh my gosh, girl, I would never want to list my family. I'd be picking the few that are my favorites and be done with it. I'd be like, I have others. It's okay. It's not important. Man, that's a good idea. I would have the list. I would like keep that in my wallet. And then if someone asks about my family, be like, hold on, hold on. I have 13 family members, and then I give them the list. It's already there for you. Don't ask me to sign them. That's what I would do. But I was gonna say, if you have the 13, we're not like how you would do that is you'd be like 13, then you would open your hand like this, start going down, and there are 2 ways you can go. You can, after you go the 5th one, go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way 13. Or some people will go like this and they'll add the one here with the other hand. With 13, I'd recommend doing it this way, only because you go past that 10 and your hands, you run out of room fast. So I would do that if you were describing all your family members. But yeah, I would write it out because I can already see someone going, I ain't gonna remember none of that. So I'm sure, I don't blame them. I'm sorry, 13. Like that would take me a minute. I'd be like, okay, hold on. You're gonna have to repeat. You're gonna have to give me some like cues of something that I can identify them by. Like, we're gonna have to have nicknames here, something to stick. So, but that's how you would do a family, is like you would list out your family. Um, and the nice thing is that is very similar if you were talking about listing things in general, like if you were first, you worked here and then you moved to this job and then you went to here and then here and that, you can do that same sort of thing too, is that listing. It's really helpful. I do it a lot, but I'm also a teacher who is trying to explain to the kids every period, we're going to start with this and then we're going to do this and then this, and it's only 3. So I may be a little bit more using it often than that. Okay. All right, let's move on to jobs and occupation and people. Oh, wait, no, wait. Before we do that, I knew I was forgetting something. I wanted to add husband and wife here because that was not on our list. And I feel like that one does get asked a bit. So if you were going to sign like husband and wife in your little family, for wife, well, for husband and wife, there are 2 similar ways you can do it. It's interesting. I asked different coworkers who are deaf, and I'm like, which do you use for wife and which in husband versus which do you use for the sign for believe? Because they are very similar. And I have gotten very different responses to the point where I kind of see it just kind of interchanges, and context clues will kind of like help piece it together. So I typically, what I do is for wife, you start with like your open hand, kind of bent fingers on your chin, and you go wife, wife, wife. So wife, and then husband is going to be up here, husband, husband, husband. Now, what some people do is they're going to do that. Some people will do pointer finger and then open that hand, pointer finger, open, wife, husband. Like I said, they vary. They kind of just depend. I've seen both ways happen for husband and wife. I'd said wife and husband, but y'all know what I meant that time. So yeah, that's how you can talk about your spouse. I did want to add that. Are there any other family signs you guys can think of that you're curious of? Anything like that before we move on to jobs? Okay. Oh, yes. So if you were going to talk about a step parent, this also can go for stepchildren as well. There are two ways I've seen it. One is just finger spelling step, like STEP. It's very simple. And then saying like, so my step dad, step mom, step sister, things like that. The other way I've seen is I have seen some people where they do step mom, where they like brush their pointer finger across their nose. It's almost like they're saying false mom, which I think is interesting because I was like, I know some people may not like their step parents, but also like some do. And so it kind of threw me when I saw stepmom and I was like, but I've seen that stepmom. I typically finger spell stepmom, but so yes. Any
It's
others?
so interesting where ASL decides to be really careful, like run, and where ASL is just like, eh, call him a fake parent. It's like,
It's because I think it's because ASL is very blunt. Okay. You guys haven't experienced it yet, but when like I think we have a class where we describe like we're talking about feelings and things like that. It's very blunt. Like for example, when you're talking about someone's weight, like if you're talking about like the size of the person, some people will say like they're thick, like they're this. And whereas us hearing people, we're like, oh, how dare you say that? Like that's insulting. Deaf people don't. That's just being honest. Like that's just they're blunt because that's how they would describe it. It's the same way with talking about like size and talking about like different kinds of things like that. We may be like, we don't say fat, we say chunky. We may, oh, she's a little chubby, things like that. No, it's the same. You're talking about someone who's a little bit bigger. That's it. But it's not them insulting, it's just being direct. But it can be a bit of like a whoa, okay, that could be a little mean. And I have to explain that to some of my deaf students, like, because they'll be wanting to like write it like that. And I'm like, English, you do have to kind of fix it a little bit because you can't say the fat girl. That's not okay anymore. Like that's not okay. And they're like, but she's and I'm like, I know, we gotta figure out how to word this better. And that's even with me being a math teacher, like, because they'll try to bring their like English reading homework. I'm like, guys, please, let's fix this. So half siblings, or adopted. Okay, that's a good one. So for half siblings, this one I think is a little bit funny because I have seen some people use the sign for half, like one half, when talking about a brother or sister. But if you were being very like blunt about it, being like very I'm trying to think of the word. I can't the word is literally left in my head right.
literal, literal.
Yes, thank you. I said literally and it still went over my head. Guys, I'm telling you, it just um like, but if you're
This is
thinking
why
very
you have to have a librarian in the class with you because as a math teacher, you're not safe.
no, I'm not. It's gone. I'm like, what? What? English? So, but like to me, I always kind of laugh at saying half siblings because like the literal sense is you're talking about there's only one half of them, like it's half a body. Um, but I have seen people do one half, like I have a half sister or things like that. I personally like to finger spell half. Um, just because again that literal sense of one half, which is how you would do a fraction, like one half, that's how you do it, slide it down. I'm just like, you don't have half a sister, like period, like you're talking about you have a half sister but not one half of her. But that's just me. Adopted is adopted, and this is also take, which you be talking about like me, I'm adopted, my parents adopt me from whatever country, blah 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 blah. So you would do adopted. It's the same, like I said, same time for take. Mhm. Okay, let's start moving on to occupations. If there's any other family signs you guys can think of later, let me know. Like put in the chat. We can come back to it. Okay. So, the nice thing about jobs and workers and people is that occupations are going to have a very similar pattern to them. We are going to have the sign that is the noun slash verb of an occupation, and then we're going to add this sign person to it. Person. It's open hands, and you just come down like you're making a person shape. Person. Some people will do P's like person. So what I mean by that, because I know you're like, what are you talking about? For example, we're going to do teacher first, because I think that one's always just an easy one. You're going to take that teach from teacher, and you're going to do the sign for teach. So teach is two flat, like hand puppets, and you're going to come to the side of the head, and you're going to go teach. You just bounce it. So this is teach. If you were going to talk about a teacher, you would go teach teach person, teach person. I like it. I personally like it because I think you get two signs for one. Basically, you get the sign for teach, but also the sign for teacher, even though it is similar. So, teacher, teacher. Okay. Then we're going to do the sign for work. So the sign for work / job is the same sign. Is going to be your non-dominant is in an S fist facing down. Dominant is going to be another S, and you're going to tap it on your non-dominant hand. Work. And you don't want to have your elbows sticking out as you do it. You want to kind of have them more resting down. Yeah. Work. That can be talking about your job. That can also be talking about like, oh, I have work to do. Oh, I'm at work. Those vary. They are the same work. If you were talking about how you are a worker, like you work, brains lost, we're just going to say worker. You would do worker. Worker. Okay. The next one we're going to do is manager. Well, actually, you know what? No, I lie. I'm sorry. I'm changing that because manager goes along with server, and we're going to hold on that because they go together. We'll do librarian. So for librarian, we're going to take library, which is going to be an L, and you're going to go in a circular motion. Library. Library person. Library person. Good. Okay. The next one we have is artist. So for artist, you're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the sign for art, which is going to have your non-dominant sideways. Your dominant is going to be in a pinky up, and you're going to zigzag across it. Art. Art. So artist. Art person. Art person. Okay. Let's do one more. We'll go back through that. Our next one we're going to have is a lawyer. Okay. So for lawyer, you're going to do the sign for law and then person. So the sign for law is going to be non-dominant sideways again, like this. Your dominant's in that L, and you're going to tap up top and then bottom. Law. I almost said lawyer. No, this is law. Law. So you would go lawyer, law person, law person. Okay. Let's go back. So we did teacher first. I did move us all out of our order that Miss Katie gave us. My bad. So we had teacher. So teach person. Then we had work, which was work. And then worker, work person. Then we had librarian. So we had library person. So library person. Then we had artist. So art person. And then we had our lawyer. Law. So law person. Okay. How are we feeling so far? Good? Okay, awesome. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the next sign for server / waitress waiter. Those are the same ones, okay? So you're going to do the sign for serve first. And the sign for serve is you're going to have open hands and you go back and forth. I think about holding the different plates when they bring in them back and forth to you guys for food. So serve. So a server or a waiter would be serve person. Serve person. Server, waiter. waitress. They'd all be the same. Then we have manager. So a manager is going to do manage first. Manage is going to be 2 X's. You're going to turn them sideways, and you're going to go back and forth like we did with our serve. So manage. This is also the sign for control. Manage and control. So manager, manager, manager. Okay. Sorry, I always like to watch everyone do it to make sure they see it and they got it. Okay. Crazy person. Wait, you want the sign for crazy person? Crazy, yeah, it's crazy and then person. Crazy person. Yep. Fun fact. Okay, this actually relates to this, I promise. I'm gonna add this here because I think it's always interesting. So you know how we're talking about if we don't know someone, we call it a stranger, right? In ASL, you would not sign strange and then person. Because if you were to do that, you are talking about a strange person, like someone who is very strange. And not all strangers that we don't use strangers talking about they're being strange. We're talking about we just don't know them. So if you were to be talking to someone and saying, like, I don't know them, like they're a stranger, you really wouldn't say strange person, which I will give you guys a sign for strange. It's strange. Like an open C and you just kind of tilt it in front of your face, like strange. Like that's odd. Strange. So if you did strange like strange this, you were talking about someone being strange, like concerning strange, stranger. I just always think that's interesting because, like, we always say, oh, yeah, she's a stranger to me. I don't really know her. Like, she's, and it's not being insulting or rude. It's just being like, we just don't know them. But yet, in ASL, you say that, you look here insulting. So, perfect. Okay. Our next one we have is a chef / a cook. This one, you don't always have to have that person if you're talking to them and they're asking like what your job is. So for the sign for cook itself, not the person, but the actual action, the verb, you're gonna have your non-dominant palm up. Dominant is here, kind of face down, and you're gonna flip it over. Cook. Cook. I think about flipping like pancakes and stuff, that kind of thing. Cook. Cook. So if you were going to talk about being a chef, you could say cook, or you can say cook person, cook person. Ow, my wrist. Okay. Our next one is going to be engineer. And then after that, we'll do a few more actually. I think we're doing okay. So for engineer, interestingly enough, you're not doing the sign for engine, okay? Because an engine is a totally different thing. Engineer is actually going to use the sign for measure and then person. So measure is you're going to have 2 Y's. You're going to put your thumbs together and your dominant hand is going to bounce. Measure. This is measure. So if you're going to talk about engineer, you would do measure person. Measure person. Measure person. Okay. Now, our next one we're going to do is scientist. Scientists can vary depending on, like, can be specific on the specific types. And I was going to add the same thing can be said for, I knew it. I felt someone was going to put a specific type of engineer. That's why I was like, oh, I better say this now. Better say it now. I will say that one. Yes, I will show that one. So for scientists, real quick, scientist is going to be 2 A's and it can be 2 S's as well, just depending. S's is more English, A is more ASL. Either way, though, it's not going to be the end of the world if you changed it. And so you're going to make this motion, and it's like you're pouring the beakers. That's how I always like to think about it, is you're pouring the beakers in science. So this is science. So scientist would be science person, a scientist, scientist. But if you were going to be talking about being like a chemist, you would do chemistry. Chemistry is where we do use the C's and we go chemistry, like chemist person. Oh gosh. These are like some of the hardest words to say because my brain wants like, I'm signing chemistry person, but the English is chemist. It's shorter. So chemistry person. Okay. Biology is the same thing with the B's, biologist, biologist, biologist. I wanted to go back to our engineers because if you are a chemical engineer, you would be like chemical engineer. So you'd add that C motion of like pouring it in and then engineer. For a train engineer, you would do the sign for train. And the sign for train is you're going to have two H's/U's. Put one down, put the other on top, and you go back and forth. Train. And it's like the motion, like it's the visual of like all the train tracks. So train engineer. Train engineer. Okay. Let's see. All right, we'll stop there and go back because I know we've done a good bit. All right, so we had server. So we had serve person. Serve person. Then we also had our manager. So manage or control. Person. Manager. Then we had our cook/chef. Cook. So cook, person, or you can go sometimes without. And then we had our engineer. So measure person, measure person. Then we had our scientist. So science person, science person. We had our chemist. So our chemistry person, chemistry person. Our biologist, biology person, biology person. And then our train engineer, train engineer. I saw that smile come up when we said train engineer. He's like nodding along. The second I say train engineer, that little smile just comes up. I caught it. Okay. So I have a few more. And then I'm going to leave it open for any other jobs you guys are curious of. And so let's see. Okay, we already did that one. Good. All right. The next one we have is businessman slash businesswoman. And so what you're going to do is the sign for business. Okay. And it's going to be two B's. You're going to turn your non-dominant sideways. And your dominant B is going to go back and forth across like the top. Okay. Business. Business. And then busy is also like in here too. It's like when you just can't make it smaller and go back and forth. Busy, busy. I always like to add that here. So business. So if you're going to say businessman, businesswoman, you would do business man or business woman. Okay. Our next one we have is, sorry, excuse me. I had hiccups coming. Astronaut, because this one's a fun one. Okay. And this one, you're actually going to do the sign for rocket and then add person with it. So the sign for rocket is going to have your non-dominant sideways. Your dominant is going to be in an R, and you're going to shoot it up. Rocket. So rocket, So rocket person, rocket person, rocket person. And I'm sorry, I am going to add another little fun fact here because I always think about whenever I think about this. There are some towns, especially in Alabama, that are, because they are often like talked about or mentioned, that they have their own name signs. Okay. Not every little town in Alabama has one, but it is cool that there's a few that do. And Huntsville has one. And Huntsville's is an H, and it's Huntsville for the Rocket Space and Center, Rocket Space Science Center there. And I just always think about that because I think that is just so cool. Like that was one of my favorite things to learn. Was like, this is Huntsville. Oh my gosh, no, like that makes so much sense. So every time I have to do astronaut, I'm always like Huntsville. So little fun fact. Okay. The next one we're gonna do is the military / the army. The military itself is they use these very broad sign, and then depending on the person you talk to, some will say there are signs for Navy, Air Force, Marines. I've seen them a few times. I've also seen finger spelling with them as well. So they kind of vary. I don't see the signs themselves as much compared to the finger spelling. So I'm just going to give you the generalized generic sign for military right now. Okay. And so for military, you're going to have two thumbs up. You're going to have one on the cross, and it's hard to see, but it's down here on my ribs. Military. And it's like the motion of holding your weapon strap or your backpack kind of deal. Military. Military. So if you were talking about you're in the military, you do military. Well, if you're military man, I don't know. That doesn't sound right. What's the
Artillery?
soldier? That
Soldier. Oh.
that works. Yeah. Sorry, I saw Judy put pianist first, and I went, "Huh? Wait a minute." Military. And like, I totally. She was just putting in one that she wanted to see, but it totally
But there
threw me.
are pianists in the military, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. So a soldier would be arms and down. Okay. Next, so pianist. What you would do is there are two ways you can kind of do it. I typically would, like, if someone asks, what do you do? I'd be like, I play the piano. Um, or I mean, you could say, because piano is piano. It's like literally just tap, like wiggling your fingers. Um,
I have got to stop us right here because Jillian and I have had this discussion whether we should have should we talk about music signs? We've never talked about music signs and like, should we do music signs? I don't know.
it's interesting. I love saying like, yes, 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 we should.
I love music, so I would love to do music signs.
I'll add a few. If we have time at the end, I can add a few because there's not too many, obviously. But I can show you like how you do a concert or a singer because if you were talking about an artist, a musical artist, you would not sign artist, okay? Because again, this is like artwork, like designs, works like that. Like painters, that kind of concept. So, but if you're talking about a musical artist, you wouldn't do artist, you would do something else, which I will show you. But because I was like, we have like, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left, and then we'll go back to that. Okay. So, but for pianist, you could do piano play. Oh, there it is. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean to bang my table like that. um, when you catch something like in when like I'm signing, and if I'm like, oh, that's right, I will bang the table. It's we all do it, okay? At school, it's normal because you can't really hear it. And that's why I banged the table. I'm so sorry. I realized, wow, that was probably very loud. My bad, guys. But what I was gonna say is I was sitting here like play piano because like I've never had to think about being a pianist, but I would do a piano player. That's where I was gonna go. So you would do piano, and then you would do the sign for play, which is play. It's like two Y's and then go back and forth. Play your. Play your. Play your. That will later come up when we're talking about sports because this is also talking about being a sports player. Like if I play soccer, I play this, that kind of thing. So I would do piano player. Piano player. Okay. The next one we're going to do is therapist, and we're just going to kind of touch this. If y'all want more specific kinds of therapists, let me know. But we'll just kind of touch this one. So for therapist, you're going to do the sign for therapy first. So you're going to have your non-dominant palm up. Your dominant is going to be in a T, and you're going to tap it on top. Therapy. Therapy. So you would go therapy person. Therapy person. Therapy person. I cannot sign and voice like the different words at the same time. I really can't. That's why I keep struggling, guys. So, my bad. Therapy person. Therapist. I actually never seen the sign for masseuse because I've never thought about that. I see like massage, like kind of move. I'll check on that one before I start saying, oh, I think it's this one. I'm gonna double check on that one because like I've not really seen masseuse. I'll see what they say. I'll check tomorrow and hopefully save it for next week. The next one I was gonna say is the sign for doctor. So the sign for doctor is you're gonna have your palm up and you're gonna kind of have that bent hand, and you're gonna tap at the base of your wrist where your pulse is. Doctor. The nice thing with this one is you don't actually have to add person to it. It's just doctor. Doctor. Then we have nurse. Nurse is going to be the same thing, but with 2 fingers. Nurse. 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 Okay, our last 2. So the next one we have is president. So like if you're being like the president of a company, president of that, and you're going to, this one's always an interesting one. You start with C's on the side of your head, and you're going to pull them out like this to an S. Resident. It's almost like making horns. Resident. Oh, look on his face. I don't know. I didn't. This is always how it's been. I don't know what it is. Trust
To
me.
me,
I've
that is
tried to
the
figure it out.
wildest sign. I mean, it's just like
I know. I know.
so
I just always
random.
think about like long horns,
I mean,
like
I
the
get it, but at the same time, it's just
my brain can't wrap my head around it. Okay.
what?
And his face, like, what? And I was like, but I mean, it is like you're making like little, yeah, it's interesting. So president, president. And then our last one, vice president. Vice president is literally just VP.
Vice
VP.
president is way cooler.
Like VP. I just think it's funny that like president's all big up here, and then you have VP, vice president. So VP. Okay. All right. Are there any other jobs you guys can think of that you guys are curious of?
Oh wait, I wanted to remind everybody. I don't think you said this, that president and vice president is the same if you're a sorority president, the president of your company, etc.
Yes. Okay. Since no one's put any other jobs I can think of, let's real quick do some music signs here real quick, if that's okay with everybody. And then if we have time, we'll do some questions. Okay, some question sentences. So the sign for music itself, okay? I'm gonna have to kind of angle myself weird because it has your non-dominant arm. You're gonna have your non-dominant arm kind of bent like this, and you're gonna take your dominant hand and go back and forth, back and forth. And this is music. Now, if you're talking about a singer, or a musician, you would do music, person. Like I'm a singer, music, person. It gets interesting when you're talking about bands, you fingerspell bands. So that one doesn't really, I have not seen a sign for bands itself. I've seen when you're talking about a musical instrument, like a guitar or like the flute. I didn't think for a minute. I'm sorry. I was sitting here literally doing it. They're like, there you go. Thank you. I knew I was doing it wrong. I don't know which one I'm doing. Clarinet. I was not a music person. Okay. I'm not going to lie. I have no idea on musical instruments. That was never, I never even touched one. I tried for one day, for like 1 week. And then I was like, no. So you kind of make the motion of it. So like guitar is guitar, like you're strumming the guitar. The flute. I'm just saying, yeah, no, that's like, that is the violin. If you're going to be really specific, like a fiddle, a viola, because I know that's a thing. Trust me, that was the instrument I tried to play for a week and then gave up. And a violin, you would make that motion and then finger spell it. If you really needed to make it very specific, I'm talking about a viola, not a violin. That's a very important, prideful thing to you. Drums is the same way. Drums, you just pretend to beat drums. So yeah, I love that. It's very like you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'm
Okay, I
trying
have
to
a question.
yes.
So just like with animals, like we do like what?
He put bagpipes.
Oh, oh, that's a good one. You know, we just had Burns night Saturday night.
I mean, I'm just like,
We
I'm
had a
trying to think
bagpiper in the building. It was awesome.
if you were doing bagpipes, I think. You would have to fingerspell bagpipes. I think you'd have to do it. I mean, you could make, I feel like you could fingerspell bagpipes and then make the motion of it so they knew what you were talking about. But then they'd probably be like, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You
What?
know, I was about to say, I bet there's a deaf bagpiper out there that has a sign. And then I thought, well, maybe there's not a deaf bagpiper. Like, I don't know.
There could be. There are some deaf musicians that will actually like they have bands and
Okay,
things.
I'm going to look into this week and I'm going to send y'all some music. Like,
It's
we've never done music before. It's like one of my favorite things. I don't know why we haven't done it.
I think it's because like you don't think about it because you're thinking about talking to deaf people and like that's it's almost like that first assumption is like, oh yeah. And so I think that's what happens. Cause I remember that used to happen like when I was in high school. I never even thought about music stuff until I was like, oh. And I even remember when like I first started really signing, I was like, am I insulting people talking about my music preference and like my favorite bands? I was like, is this insulting? And no, because it's just talking about different things that are my favorite. I'm not really like excluding them because of that. So
I would
yeah,
think
all
too,
good.
if it's part of pop culture, that like they're gonna know who Lady Gaga is,
Oh,
or do you
yeah,
know what
they
I'm saying?
do.
Like if it's
They so do because I actually so during the summer, we're just gonna totally veer off real quick. During the summer, I went to go visit a few of my friends who are deaf, and we went to a water park to just kind of chill, you know, have a summertime, have fun. And we were in the wave pool area, okay? And they had this huge big screen that was like a I can't remember what it's called, like a projector. And it was playing music the whole time. And it was like, you know, it was pretty loud. Like to me, I'm like, oh, I can hear that this is loud. And some of my deaf friends who do have some hearing could hear some of it. And they would be like, who's singing this? Who's this? Like, because they would hear some of the voice or they'd feel the beat. And they're like, wait a minute, I know this song because of the beat. And so they'd ask me, like, oh, is this like so and so, like Justin Bieber or Rihanna? And I was like, oh yeah, this is Rihanna. Like, and we had a very interesting just like topic discussion about it. It was a lot of fun to just chat and stuff and
I
see.
figured there had to be something like that because some of my favorite shows are when the bass is so thumping that I can feel it. So like I
Yes.
know they're feeling,
Oh, they
even
so
if
do.
you're profoundly deaf, you're still feeling the
I have
rhythm.
two coworkers that I know when they arrive, if I'm still in my car outside in the parking lot. Like, cause sometimes I'll just sit there, like, you know, listening to my audiobook or I'm like texting before I go into the like building and I will hear and feel the boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, oh, those two coworkers are here because they have made their music so loud in their car. So yeah, yeah. Um, Pop culture is just really, you just fingerspell pop, so like POP, and then culture. Culture is like a C over your pointer finger. Culture. So pop culture. I was gonna say conductor. Conductor was like kind. You can be like conductor, like I, but I'd also probably would be like kind of describing like I lead a band or hold on. Sorry, I'm sitting here thinking of how I would say it. And I always do that. I have to reassess how I would say it
Like
because
I
sometimes
lead a symphony. I
that's when I was like a symphony. And I'm
right.
like, I would finger spell that. And then I would almost start describing like a big, which I know this is so not ASL 1. Like I know this is not, I'm adding like 40 words here that have not been taught. But I would be like a big group of people that, and I would have to almost like act it out to kind of explain it. So yeah, unfortunately, sorry about that. I'm like conduct because if you just do like conductor, they may like catch it, but I also can be like them. What are you talking about? You'd have to kind of explain that one a little bit better.
I know what I wanted to say because it's been a long time. We have talked about music a little bit before because do you remember my husband and I went to Alice Stevens Center a couple of years ago to a concert and I realized and it was I forget who it was, but it was jazz, it was
Mm-hmm.
there were no lyrics. But they had interpreters. And I remember saying to Jillian, like, it really surprised me that there were sign language interpreters, but they were totally signing you could tell it went with what they were. It was very cool.
I was gonna also add there too, because of that is there are interpreters at concerts because concerts is also the sign for music too. It's the same thing. And so, like, when you go to concerts, you can see some people have interpreters there. What's really cool and actually a little bit challenging is when you are doing interpreting, for concerts is they're not signing every single word, because what they're having to do is before they even start that, they have to analyze. And I mean, some can immediately do it, some it takes a minute. You have to analyze the meaning of what the song is saying, because you can't say, like, because like it's the same concept when we're saying, well, I'm feeling blue, but you're not actually feeling the color blue, you're feeling sad, that kind of thing. They have to do the same thing with interpreting songs, which I'm like, I had to do that for my ASL classes in high school, because that was like our learning and like projects. And it's challenging because you have to really think, how would you describe something like this? How would you explain this? And it can get a little bit complicated. It's almost like, I love watching. Sorry, my dog is playing and she got really, really excited and threw me off for a minute. Her little nails were going everywhere. But like with interpreting for songs, I'm always like, that's really cool to watch. So I always recommend, if you see them, to watch it. It's really cool. Wow. See
That's
that?
so cool.
It's really cool. And like I said, it can be a little bit challenging
Oh,
because you
I
have
would
to
love to see that too.
like, oh yeah. Well, and the more you start to like notice it, the more you will catch it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, see, but the thing that's always so interesting too is that even if you do look up all the signs, like I said, it's not applying it word for word. So you have to like translate. And what it's called is, it's called ASL glossing. That's the word for it. But that's the translating from English to ASL. And it can get really complicated, especially if you're me, who likes to sit there and spiral and be like, trying to be as literal as possible. And it just, I mean, you spiral so fast if you're not careful. Which is why I'm not an interpreter for music. Cause I'm like, I will literally lose myself before I even realize I'm supposed to be signing this song. I'll be too focused on, but the meaning of this sentence is this, and that means this. And I can just see it. I see it now. I know me. I know me as a person. Oh, definitely. So, okay. I know we veered off so much, but I was going to ask, are there any final questions you guys have? Because I know it's 6:30, so I'm not going to keep y'all too much longer. But um and then I know we had a few of the questions and
Do
the
those next time. Or I think
yeah.
we made room at the last lesson for hodgepodge. Like we could.
Mhm. What I was gonna say too, the nice thing is like asking how many children, how many siblings you have. You can literally say like your kids, how many, or kids you have. Like have is just putting your two hands on top of your, right above your, like your armpits. So have. So you have kids, how many? Like have kids, how many? That kind of thing. So because we've already learned how many, I think last week with our WH. So it's the same thing, the how many. But alrighty. If you guys think of anything else that you want to ask about, just let Miss Katie know and she'll save it. I've got to put down the word masseuse so I do not forget this word next week.
Oh, I
'Cause-
missed that one.
Yep.
That's a good one. And then I'm gonna do some research into deaf musicians. So you're gonna get some emails from me with some music.
That'll be exciting.
It'll be fun. Yeah. Okay.
But, all right. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of y'all's week, and I will see you guys all next Tuesday. Bye, guys.